Yes, 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 and yes, we are definitely back for another open court discussion live in the Counselor's Corner. I am your host, David Lorenzo Glover, aka the Controversial Counselor. Joining me is the my co-host, the Big Bad Whoop, Herb Lewis.
Ow!
The panel is a Showtime decision, or whomever is willing to pull up. Recap from the unpacking of colorism in America. That was this past Monday show. You might want to go back and watch the replay on the YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor. Lots of going back and forth in the chat. Also, don't forget to the featured reels on Facebook, YouTube, IG, and TikTok. All right, moving right along to tonight, Monday, August 19th. The broadcast topic will be back to school blues, what adults need to be concerned about. We will dive into the real talk about going back to school, from navigating academic pressure, social drama, to managing mental health and children finding their identity. We're exploring it all. Please like and share our video on the YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor, and don't forget to tell a friend to subscribe. We are sitting on 896 subs, four away from the next goal, 900. So let's get it, folks. Uh, Make sure you join us tonight as we share stories, advice, and laughs that help you survive and thrive in this new up and coming school year. So grab your backpacks, your favorite pen, and let's get real about those back to school blues. All right, all right. So yep, it is back to school. Today was the first day here in Baltimore County for
Oh,
teachers to report back. Next week, the students will be on their way back. So yeah, it's definitely excitement, especially going to a brand new school. But also for me, you say, "Damn, where the hell this summer went?" Seemed like we just got out, and this is how time is just flying by. And again, we always talk about time isn't forever, and as you see, it seems like these summers just keep as you get older, get shorter and shorter, and time just flies by. And now we about to be into the heat of the battle, and so many of you may wonder, like, shit, like I said in the promos, like the Blues, I'm happy as hell. They going back to school. They gonna stop eating me out of a house and home. I'm gonna have some peace and quiet. But maybe that's the way it used to be. But now parents and adults have so many other concerns when their kids go off to school. So many. So, I mentioned a few of them in the about the academic pressures, bullying, and things of that nature. So it's like always on, pins and needles. And it seemed like since 911, when everybody decided to put cell phones in there, after that, everybody started to put cell phones in their, the younger kids' hands. Now, parents can barely probably get a good day of work without being contacted by their kid, being FaceTimed by them while they're in class. And which I'm sure impacts your job situation. So sometimes I think that creates some of the blues, but that's just my take. And hey, I'm deep in the battle, so I know the feeling. Herb, what's good with you?
to follow what you just said, I just saw an article and I don't know who the author of it was, and they were talking about that exact same thing. So there's a lot of validity to that. And I know on a subsequent show, Dr. Anwar also talked about, the use of technology and how it could interfere with the education of students. So that's something to bear in mind. But for me, man, I can't wait for this summer to be over. Just this tourist season has been a nightmare, man. It just about everything, literally everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. Systems crashing, us having to do things the old school way, writing down, man. I am done. I'm just ready for football.
Hmm.
That's it. I got nothing else going on. I got to do some cleaning up around here, a little bit of painting and remodeling, but I'm just about to put it in neutral and let it go on downhill.
Oh, I gotta ask, what's up with the book?
Oh man, you know what? I gotta get that done. That should be priority number one. Actually, I gotta contact the author and get him up to speed, and then I gotta contact my man. And my eye is just irritated, so people forgive me for rubbing. I gotta get the cover done, and then hopefully by the end of September that's be out. I know the um the supposed date was the middle of July, I think July 15th. But like I said, I got caught up in the play and rehearsal for that, and then some other things have come up. So yeah, but that's it though. With regards to that, like I said, that date, the end of August, is definitely etched in stone. So I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna get that done.
All
Now,
right. So again, so when you think of the subject matter, her what's your concept of back to school blues? Why would it be
well,
blues?
in addition to well, just what you said. In addition to that, I had 10 categories that you know and I don't have kids. Let's just get that out the way. So I called one of my brothers and I spoke to him about it, and he was in agreement with some of the things. So in addition to what you wrote down in the preview of the show, I had some other things that parents need to be concerned about too. One of those, of course, is new influences. Whether they're teachers, students, especially if you move into a new district. And I think that's something that's lost on a lot of people. You might be moving into a new school if your child is transferring from elementary to middle school, or as the case in Niagara Falls, preparatory school, or they're going from junior high to high school. So you have the new influences, appropriate clothing, dress codes is always a big thing in schools. So understanding your child's needs, and we'll get into all of these as we go along. And what I mean by that is this: if you have a child of yours who's struggling academically and you may not be aware of that, that's something that might crystallize as they progress through the higher grades. So once they start getting in the seventh and eighth grade, if they don't read well, if they had a bit of a speech impediment, but had manifested itself because they're not dealing with multiple syllabic words or more complex words, something you may want to get on. Uh, being an advocate for your child, which actually follows number three, structure is a huge thing. A lot of parents will say, well, what do you mean by structure? I send my kid to school, this, that. What a lot of people don't understand is structure for a student is established early in their lives. Case in point. Oh, speaking of which, let me ask this trivia question. Do kids spend more time in school on a yearly basis or out of school? That's a trivia question. And remind me, I'll answer that before we conclude the show. So, structure. Structure includes a lot of things: food, sleep, preparedness. All of those are just smaller points in a structure of a student we want to perform well academically. Number six was, we have a lot of parents, you know, that struggled academically. And because they did, sometimes they push that off on their kids, meaning that if you go to the school, you got a parent teacher conference meeting, and you see a teacher that you didn't like and they're teaching your student, that can go one of two ways. It can be positive or it can be negative. And you can say as a teacher, well, I didn't like him when he was my teacher and this and that. And all of a sudden now, if you think that teacher has an end for your child, then what? You have to struggle with your own issues with that teacher and your perceived or maybe not perceived issues that that teacher might have with your child. 7 was being present. And that can come in a lot of different ways. And I know most parents, especially if you're a single parent and you're working, you don't have the time to show up at school for your child. Do you have anybody else that you trust? Any volunteer mentors that are going to go in from time to time and just peek in and see how things are going, see what the environment is like? Number 8, time management, emergency situations, and extracurricular activities. All of these, in one way or another, is going to impact a student and how well they do. So that's it. But I go back, especially for me, considering once I got to high school, things were different for me. I was kind of my own person in terms of, working, academics, extracurricular activities. I managed that all. So for me, I didn't have that hands-on parental figure, and I didn't necessarily require it. I was always, a kind of a self-motivated person and one who could navigate the complexities that were going on. But a lot of kids, especially today, they don't have that wherewithal for whatever reason, being that they're not raised with it, they're not taught, or they're just not instructed on what it means to be self-motivated, to go to school, to get good grades, to not have a parent always behind them having to do things, having to always show them. I was kind of blessed in that manner that I could be shown something once or twice and I would get it. I was also, the type of person that would actually go out and ask questions. Some of these kids, they won't ask questions. They'll just sit there in class and they'll just they'll fail. And especially with no child left behind, it's real easy to sit there and not ask questions when you don't understand something. So, that's for me, that's one of the really, really big things that we need to be cognizant of, whether you're a parent, administrator, whatever the case is. There are some kids that are not going to ask questions and they don't have a parent at home that's going to advocate for them. So they continue to get left behind, or they continue to get pushed ahead until they're no longer able to be pushed ahead. And then you will have the cases like we've seen before where the kid is in the 12th grade and he has a GPA less than 1.0. So all of these things come in to play earlier than what we think they do. And the earlier you get a grasp on something as a parent, the better off you and your child are.
So I'm gonna add to that, and that's all fun fall under like academic readiness, being prepared, like you said, time management, structure, having all the supplies, having some districts like our districts, they have a computer, making sure the computer is charged on a nightly basis, so when they go to school, just having a routine. And one of the things that I enjoy is going into the classrooms and talking to the students early in the year about their routine, their structure. And it blows my mind the response that I get when is just basic like questions, and I may ask them, what's your routine when you get out of school? And many of them will say, oh, I go home, I eat, I get on the game, and what they say, I eat a snack, then I get on the game, and then I might go outside and I might eat dinner, or some of them may have like after like activities, rec sports to go to, but many of them never mention homework. So I say,
Mhm.
what about homework? And they say, Mr. Glover, we don't have homework. What? So y'all telling me that? And what many of them don't understand. So for parents out there, when they tell you they don't have homework, uh, don't believe that shit.
Yeah.
Because if you're able to look at their grades and you see that it's not straight A's, then and they're missing assignments, then they always got something to do. So oftentimes I would tell them about my routine, and I was like, no matter what, it was like clockwork. I said, I might have got a snack. I said, but what I always did is sat at the table and did my work first before I would go outside, before I would go to football practice,
Yeah.
before I go to basketball practice. And that was kind of self motivated, that something I wanted to do, because I said, hey, you work hard, you can play harder. And I didn't have to
Yeah.
worry about when we in that intense game on Sunday, touch football or tackle football, that I got to worry about my mother calling me from the top of the alley to come in the house because I got a project due or whatever. My stuff was done. It was done Friday before I went out, or every day it was done. And I kind of took that routine on, which also was helpful, which now that I think about it as I got older, and probably don't
Hmm.
understand why they had it, but it probably would. Knowing my grandmother, it was some type of gimmick or something she had an opportunity with, but she had encyclopedias. So through grade school, that was always helpful when we had to learn about every state and learn the capital and learn what the state was known for. That I always had that resource as a guide to go through the encyclopedia, and then just, no, don't get me wrong, I probably was plagiarizing like a mother. Well, we didn't know nothing about plagiarizing in elementary, so
Yeah.
you would copy
So,
word for word. But I had access to that, and that was very helpful. And I was like, and now that I think about it, like, damn, do people even? Well, obviously because of the computers and stuff, but sometimes people need something to just have in their hand, like a book.
yep.
And I wonder how many people have encyclopedias in their library, uh, because, like I said, to be honest, I don't know. I think that helped me get through a lot during my and probably through junior high as well. Her having those encyclopedias, because I would go over there like I was at the library and lay across the floor with my notebook and just write right away whatever state or whatever we was covering, and I would have, and I think I was ahead of the game because I would know the capitals and know what they're known for. And we talked about the state agriculture, food and stuff. I would have all that stuff right there, and so I had a lot of the answers right there. So may she rest in peace. But shout out to my grandmother for being an innovator. And I don't know why you had them, why you got them, but it was a good purchase. Those encyclopedias.
Yeah, because if you ask anybody probably under the age of 35, maybe 40, what they think of when they hear the phrase Encyclopedia Britannica, couldn't tell you what Encyclopedia Britannica. What the hell is that? And there's also evidence, that kids or people in general, they retain more from reading a handheld book than they do reading from a phone. Then that's one of the reasons why I like periodicals, because whether it's I had subscription to Details, um, what was the other one? Details, The Week. There's a couple other ones I can't recall off the top of my head. Um, but I've always been a fan of periodicals and newspapers, but most of them are going out of print, they're going to digital. You can order them, I suppose, if you want to, but that's because I tend to remember things a little bit better because I'm a terrible speller. So I remember I used to have a list. I actually do on my refrigerator now that I think about it. A list of words that I would commonly always misspell. And one of those, oddly enough, curriculum. I would always put a CI as opposed to CUR. One of those things that I just never ever really got got good with. And I suppose that's because I don't write enough. I just don't focus on spelling like I used to when I was younger. But one of those things, like I said, encyclopedias, comparatively speaking, these kids don't spend as much time reading as generations past. And that's everybody. It's not just including students, but since we're talking about students, and it helps with spelling, it helps with retention because the more you see these things, the more you commit them to memory. So you can take an individual who might be a marginal speller, you put them in front of a book, and they see these words, and automatically they're able to identify when something is misspelled, just like we're able to identify when something is written incorrectly, and we may not be great at English. You say, wait a minute, that doesn't even look right. What the heck is this? And that's what the teachers are. And that's what the teachers are doing. Actually, this is why teachers can tell when kids don't read a lot. And we used to see it in class. We'd be reading along a passage or whatever, and the teacher would call on an individual to pick up where that individual left off. So it clued the teacher into a lot of things. One is that student following along with the reading? Two, can that student enunciate the words at this particular grade level? If not, we need to find out why. And three, are they actually doing, like David just said, are they doing the assigned reading if they didn't finish it in class? As you get higher up in the grade level, that becomes paramount because it's a function of time management, as David said. So if you're not taught young how to do those things, you can forget doing well before you get out of high school because your grades are going to lag behind because everything that you need to do, you're not doing. So you have to have your parent following up behind you. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? So all that stuff, it comes out in the wash.
And, and one of the things that's important for parents, guardians, to have continuous follow up with um, with teachers, whether it's again, some teachers, well, they probably shouldn't give out their information in text, whatever. But so want to throw that off the table. But emailing, if you're capable of doing that, you can request for progress reports and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. If you know your kid's gonna struggle, set up something with the counselor in the beginning of the year. Like you want something, a weekly progress, and that will determine if they play sports. Uh, get on that game, had their
Mm-hmm.
cell phone. You have to attack that right at the beginning of the year. And most schools have a back to school night, and you go there. Make sure you go there. Somebody, the father, grandmother, somebody, big sister,
Mm-hmm.
big brother, somebody go there to get the teacher's information and to follow up with them throughout. Don't take what your kids say for face value. I'm gonna let y'all in a little secret. Many of y'all know kids lie a lot. They lie a lot, and they're savvy enough to know. And we always talk about it, and everybody's talk about. They watch what you do, and they know your moves. See, the problem
Mm-hmm.
is they're more savvier than you are, so they're ahead of the game. They know what time you fall asleep. They know your routine, but some of y'all don't know their damn routine. So
Right.
they're able to get away and manipulate certain situations, and y'all fall for it every time. Every time. Or this teacher said this, or this teacher said that. And then when you get into a room with all the teachers and they all saying the same thing, now you're looking at little junior and like, what? So make sure you follow up with teachers, and it's important. I also want to go back and when you was talking about reading is fundamental and all that stuff, and reading is always. I used to always enjoy just picking up a book, magazine, and reading, and it also increases your vocabulary as
Yeah.
well. So where a lot of people, even adults, all y'all know is cuss words. All y'all know is slang and all that. And I remember at a young age, and this is crazy, and they can vouch for my boys. When you read, and I probably was the more avid reader out of them, and we was just, I think at the time, I don't know if I was in college or whatever, it might have been a freshman, senior, something, and we were just hanging out. And they got a kick out of when I said, um, we was at one of my boys' house and I was looking at the family pictures and I was like, damn. I was like, he all content in this picture? Just that word content. And they kind of like look like what the hell? Like like what you mean? And I was like, content, like happy, like the way he was smiling and all of that stuff. And they're like, oh, like damn. And just something like that, just to throw people off and say another word other than happy, it kind of threw them for a loop. But and that's a small word, but imagine, the more you read, the more your extensive your vocabulary become. And hey, the more period you can express yourself because
Yeah.
you know the right words to use and you're articulate and you can express yourself. But I always thought about that. I would just a little family picture. I was like, damn, your brother looked content on this picture. Uh, but I guess we always talk about context clues and inferences and things of that nature, the critical thing that they didn't get that looking at the picture that I seen that he was smiling. So I used the word
Yeah.
content. And it kind of threw them off when most people are like, oh, he happy or whatever the case is. So it's just little things like that some people know how to take other words and know what uh the synonyms and all of that stuff, antonyms and all that stuff, and know the opposite and all that stuff. When you start getting the command of that, and when you got a vocabulary and you a critical thinker, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
There ain't too many people could break you down. They can't break you down because you got too much in your toolbox that you could use, and your vocabulary is extensive. Now you got them stumbling and shit. Like, what
Yeah.
did you just say? What did that mean? Or whatever the case is. So that's the key to, and maybe that's why at one point Donald Trump didn't want to battle with Kamala because he's probably worried about that. He wasn't really worried about Sleepy Joe because time, time has passed him, but somebody's younger and sharper, probably gonna tear his ass out the frame. So he knows that. But that happens with age anyway. Like you get older, your processing gets slower, and
Mhm.
somebody that's not as old, they'll be sharper than you. So, but that's the key to always be sharp and start being sharp at a young age.
Yeah, and especially for minorities and minority males, that carries a lot of weight, particularly when if you get into corporate America, it compels people to handle you in a different way. They can't treat you like you're an idiot. They can't treat you like you're not knowledgeable. They actually have to deal with you in a manner that you present yourself, which sometimes can make people uncomfortable. And sometimes, tongue in cheek, if you can make an individual uncomfortable by the way you speak and you handle yourself, you're ahead of the game because now they're guessing what you might do next. They're trying to size you up, figure you out, and it almost becomes, I'm going to use your analogy, David, it almost becomes a boxing match. You got to figure out, okay, how do I defend against this? How do I defend against that? And you haven't done anything other than just sound articulate. I remember I used to get that nonsense. People, and this is something we mentioned last week. Why are you trying to talk like you're white? I didn't know English had an ethnicity. I was aware that if I spoke well, I have to be speaking like I'm white. No, I'm just speaking English. We all should be able to do it. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't take pride in the way they present themselves. So you have the people who speak broken English and they think that's cool. And then they wonder why when they get in certain situations, people look at them and say, who the hell is this? Why are you hanging out with him? You can do so much better. And people are offended because somebody listens to them speak and they say, oh, this person dumb. And to them, you might be. But that all goes back to, did you set yourself up properly to become more knowledgeable, more articulate, with the ability to use multiple words, like David said, content to tell a story. And I'll give parents out there a little bit of a tidbit. If you want your children to develop a better vocabulary, challenge them to learn 5 new words, and they don't have to be anything extravagant, anything difficult. 5 new words. You can do it every day. You can do it once a week. I guarantee you, if you start this at 7 years old, by the time your child graduates high school, they will have such a vocabulary that you will wonder where the hell that they got it from. Small steps equals great gains.
And see, it makes me wonder on a day-to-day basis, because I'm not always in the classroom, that I remember we used to have to write. We used to have to write that shit down over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Had to
Mhm.
put it in a sentence. Had to be
Mhm.
able to spell it.
Mhm.
We had to break down. You had was given probably a word choice like 20 words a week. Then at the
Yep.
end of the week, you have a spelling test. I always ask,
Mhm.
like, these kids don't have spelling tests no more. That used to be the thing. Like for you to have a practice spelling test, and it was one word you was spelling like I before E after C, and you be wondering like, damn, I got to get this right, because there used to be a lot of pressure on them spelling tests. But you see now, I don't want kids to have pressure. But we
Yeah.
know pressure bust pipes. But that used to be the thing. Like, damn, okay, Friday, I got the spelling test. It's 2 words that I'm struggling with, and you lock in on those words, and then when you walk away from that test, that was swag, because you're like, I got
Yeah.
this. I'm right. That was swag. But now, people use material stuff uh, for kids to have confidence, but that's fake confidence. Other than being able to have intellect and be able to be at your top of your game, like like, okay, shit, I'm gonna go somewhere. I'm gonna go places with that. And I think that's what those spelling tests and all that stuff represented. Like man, like I gotta conquer. I gotta get this word. I gotta conquer it, and know what it means and all that stuff. So it was different steps. So I don't know why they decided to break that or remove that. Probably because they was teaching to a test and trying to rush, but bad idea. Bad idea. Take your time with the kid. Take your time with the learning process. Let them learn, and you and have fun with it. Have passion with it. And that's one of the reasons why kids are turned off at school. We had great times. We had parties. We
Yeah.
had celebrations. We did this and that. But taking away that from that, like, this ain't boot camp. And some kids need that joy in their life, because
Yeah.
they know once they walk through that door, it's fucking the desert storm about to hit them. And but I guess some educators don't see it that way, probably because they never lived it. But they make all the decisions. Not good.
Yeah. Something else that David mentioned, I want to go back to. When I was running the mentoring program, what we did as program staff, or at least I did anyway, one of the things I implemented was progress reports. Like David said, now you can do it weekly. I would recommend at least every 5 weeks. Because what people fail to realize is this: summer school attendance starts with what those kids do in those first 10 weeks of school. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's what it is. Because if your child is failing any of the four core subjects, so we're talking math, science, English, I was going to say reading, in history. History is probably the only thing that they might be able to get away with making up because it's not cumulative. So, if they start failing at the first marking period, they're in trouble. They're already paving that path to summer school. And I think, let me go back and get this. I was shocked that in 2020, 3.4 million kids attended summer school. Now, what I couldn't get was if this was between what grades, because they were also incorporating college in there. And for students who go to summer school and college, they're trying to get ahead. They're not making up, because if you fail a college course, you fail a college course. There's those handles and butts about it. But the thing that also tripped me up was only 35 states and DC offer summer school. So if your child is failing their core classes early, they're gonna have to do some hard work to make up. And as David said, these kids are getting hit with storms, and storms that we never even dreamt of, because we didn't have to. We for most of us anyway, those who excel, we were made to prioritize education. We were made to do homework. The first things that we did when we came home, first thing, get out school clothes. Number two, do your homework. I don't care who's outside playing. I don't care what's on TV. You can do your homework. So these kids, whether they don't believe it helps or whether it's necessary, you have to stay on your kids. That's why I talk about being an advocate. Structure, all of those things. David said academic preparedness. All of these things. Now, you need to, as a parent, you need to step in there and make sure that your child is there with those things. Don't let them start to fall behind, because if they do, it's going to be hell for them to catch up. And let's be honest, and I'll put this out to full disclosure. When I failed 2 topics in the 7th grade, I said, fuck that. I'm not going to summer school. And I end up having to repeat the 7th grade. I failed, I think it was math and something else. I don't recall what the other topic was. And my man came in the next year. He was a grade behind me. He said, "What are you doing in here? This is 7th grade." I said, "Yeah, I think it was the 7th grade." I said, "Man, I didn't go to summer school." He said, "No, man, you joking. You ain't in here." I said, "Yeah, I'm in here. Same homeroom." And he thought I was joking. And when the bell rung and I sat down, it finally dawned on him. He was like, "Oh, wow." So people, it's real out there. And I'm giving you an honest snippet of what happened in my life in 7th grade. I had to repeat 7th grade because I refused to go to summer school. So don't allow your children to fall victim to their own sense of thinking they have everything under control. Make sure that they do. That's your responsibility. And I'll say it again. Being a parent is not a job, it's a responsibility. That is your responsibility for being a parent, is making sure that your kids are where they're supposed to be academically. Don't wait for their counselor to do it. Don't wait for the principal, the vice principal, or whoever it is to call you and ask you, are you checking up on your kid? Are you aware that your kid is this or that? You should know as a parent. You should be calling them and asking them about certain things, especially if you have a child that has an IEP, which is a individual education program, because they're out there. We have kids that have special needs. So call and ask, what are you doing for this? When is this scheduled? I know my child has this, so when do I need to be there for this? Or whatever it is that your child has or needs. Be your child's advocate. Don't let that child fall behind, regardless of what their academic struggles might be. If you need to find them a tutor, ask, where can I find help for my child who struggles in this? And what people don't know is this: there are a lot of former educational professionals living around you. Seek them out. Look in your neighborhood. For those of you who live near college campuses and universities, go ask around who's doing tutoring. And you know what? You may not have to pay them. They might do it free of charge. We always talking about black men don't reach back. Well, guess what? There's a lot of young black men who've struggled, who've come up through the system, who might say, hey, look, if you can get them here, I will help them. You need to bring them here at least one day a week. We'll set up whatever it is, and I will help them. The key is you have to be proactive. Don't wait to the 20-week market period. Don't wait to the 30-week market period and then start getting your child tutoring. Get them tutoring out the gate if you know that they struggle with certain things. That's the worst thing you can do, is put your child behind and then expect them to catch up. Because even in a marathon, if you fall too far behind, you're not going to be among the group of the winners. You're not going to be among the group of people who finish in a respectable time.
All right. I'm going to read Dr. Daphne's comments. She said, yep, take them school clothes off and do homework. Many of the schools have gotten away from homework. And
That's crazy.
I think it's more not getting away or just using that verbiage. This is your homework assignment, because a lot of it you can do in the classroom, and whatever you don't have, with whatever you have left, that should be homework. So I don't know if that, I think sometimes that's the missing piece. And for kids, you have to say that over and over. If you don't tell them this is homework, then they don't have no homework in their eyes, or what they've heard. So I think that's important, and I think that's the disconnect. But also, one of the things also I wanted to go back on when we talk about back to school blues. When I think about, Daphne said, it is the missing piece of practicing their skills. Yeah. So if you assign them homework and they go back, and, of course, if you need to practice those skills, and it's just like sports or anything. It's what you do outside of your regular scheduled time that makes you a champion. Um, it makes you better than the next person. Um, is that extra work you put in? But one of the things also, to go back, was troubling, even when I think about a city like Baltimore. And this came up, and I made a post last week, and I said, overall, the murder rate has declined, and they call this place Bodymore, uh, B Murder, all types of stuff, all types of names. But the shootings and murders have went down, uh, significant, compared to last year. But what has risen is juvenile uh, car theft, juvenile robbery. Now, parents, excuse my language, what the fuck are y'all doing? Where y'all at?
Mm-hmm.
Because no kid should just be able to. just freelance and come in and 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 do whatever. And I think sometimes that's the problem. I don't understand, like, when you don't have no whereabouts or no concerns for your children. In this day and age, you have locators and all that stuff that if you wanted to, you can know where your kid is at and locate them from their phone. So these kids out here just stealing people cars, robbing folks. But again, I don't mean to make light of the situation or be funny, but y'all be the same ones when they run up in somebody's yard that's ready for their ass and they put something in them. Now you're crying, talking about they didn't have to do that to little Pookie.
Right.
Pookie shouldn't have been where he wasn't supposed to be. And you need to tell them that. We used to hear that message over and over. Don't go in nobody's yard. Don't touch nobody's shit or whatever the case is. Bottom line, once you do that, you lost all your rights. You lost all your rights. And that's alarming that this stuff is increasing. That it seems like adults have slowed it down, but now kids, I want to rob people. I want to steal people cars. And then when somebody's ready for to retaliate, you know the outcome. You see it on the news. And now you're asking to GoFundMe to bury him and all of this stuff when it didn't have to be the case. If structure was put in place and you knew where, because if they want to choose that lifestyle, I guess shit, you could tell them either you're gonna go somewhere or to an adult house that could accept it. And if you're on the same page with that person, shit, sooner or later, okay, like, damn, I gotta get in line. I don't got nowhere to go. But then we know
Right.
also they go over friends' house and you have some adults that's intellectually challenged that their house becomes a free fall and they got like three or four abandoned teens that's over there and all that and they just having a ball. Well, I guess that that's an issue in itself and some things you can't control, but something got to be done because we can't keep going with that rate and these kids doing and hopefully it will decline because some of these kids will be in school, but we know how that goes too. If you're a rule breaker, you're a rule breaker. It
Yeah.
your damn show ain't gonna listen to the little petty rules in school. So and the staff that's there, so you don't feel no harm or no like repercussions, like what's really gonna happen. That's just another piece to throw to it.
Yeah. It's if we go back, to when we were, about that age, there were a couple things that always kept us out of that kind of trouble. Number one was our parents. They were the gatekeepers. Number two was there were hard and fast rules that we had to adhere to. Number one was street lights. If this street light is on and your ass ain't home, you belong to me. So I think, this is just my thought, I think some of that old school discipline needs to return. And I know how difficult it is, for the parents who are single. But this is when you need to actually get together with the rest of the people in your neighborhood, regardless of whatever their ethnicity is, and start building coalitions and say, hey, look, what happens to my kid is eventually going to affect your kid. Because if one kid in the neighborhood is being targeted by a group of people, you can rest assured that eventually they're gonna start targeting the other kids, especially if that child is what's considered to be a loner, whether it's a male or a female. So if that young boy, young girl doesn't have any friends and they're isolated, they're easy pickings. It's like being a wounded animal being hunted. So I encourage people, to start creating communities of parents, and his parents' goals are to look out for everybody in the neighborhood. I mentioned emergencies. So if you have a child who's what we termed as a latchkey kid, if you have a child that's 14, 15 coming home and nobody's supposed to be in the house but that child, who in the neighborhood is enforcing that if you're not there? Who in the neighborhood is going to tell you if that child violated that policy? So you can correct that child and say, hey, look, I heard you had somebody in this house. I don't care who it is. If I hear about it again, there's going to be some ramifications, repercussions. And that might be, hey, you take away the phone. They're grounded, meaning when they come home, they can't go out the house. And people will say, well, what do you want me to do? Lock them in the house? No. I expect you to establish some ground rules, but you got to do this when they're young. You can't start being a parent when they get to high school and they're acting out. You got to start when they're in the third, fourth, fifth grade, and you see those tendencies. And don't say you don't know what those tendencies are, because you can identify them. You say, hey, look, you starting to get out of hand. Don't have me act up. Don't have me do something you won't like. People don't like, quote unquote, corporal punishment. They don't like discipline. Well, if you don't discipline, as I've heard before, if you don't discipline your child now, in a decade, the criminal justice system will. So what do you want? Do you want to keep your child in line when they're 8, 9? Or do you want to let the system do it when they're 19, 20? That power, that structure is in your hands, it's within your house. But you have to start somewhere. Because if you don't start, they will never get it, because nobody else is teaching them. As David always say, school is becoming a lot more than just a place of teaching. You got to deal with social issues. You might have to deal with domestic issues. These aren't things that the school was cut out for. So you might have to find resources to help you with that. That's why I always advocate, work with your neighbor. If you can find some support from, whether it's a church, whether it's a family friend, an older brother, a sibling, an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, utilize those resources. They're all resources. And say, hey, look, I'm having a problem. Shout out to BGS. He does this with his grandson. People, use the resources that are available. Stop trying to look for excuses and create solutions, because you never know. You might not be the only one having a problem with your child. Your next door neighbor could be having the same problem. You say, hey, look, I got to work late. Is it possible that my child could stay over your house until I get there? If you can provide something for them to eat, that would help me out a great deal. We don't, and it seems, and this just might be me, it seems like we don't believe in working together anymore. I don't know. I don't have kids, so some of these situations I don't face. So when I give this advice, it's from the aspect of what I've known to work and what I believe can work if people are willing to work together. But people have to be willing to work together. And I'll challenge people to this. How many people know 4 or 5 people in your neighborhood by their first name? Whether you know exactly where they live at, how many people know them? I do, because I've canvassed my neighborhood when I was gathering petitions, and my neighborhood is pretty much um, homeowner occupied. So if you live in a neighborhood or an apartment, where people are constantly moving in and out, that makes it difficult, which is all the more reason to know who's around. You got people who are convicted of criminal offenses, and I won't necessarily mention them here, but I think people all understand what I'm saying. Criminal offenses. Do you want your children just walking around with the potential to be harmed and not knowing who's around? All these things, especially like I said, especially when you're coming into school, your kids are going to be more susceptible to it because now they're moving around. Just imagine if you have a child that rides a bike to school or that walks to school. People looking out the window, oh, okay. And maybe this is just me, so I'll defer to people. I don't know why people post their kids' pictures on social media. I'm sorry. It's just one of my biggest pet peeves. I'm just like, you know what? If you want to post your child's graduation pictures, cool. They're of the age where they could protect themselves from potential harm. But when you post in first, second, third, fourth, and fifth grade, I'm just like, why? Why let the world know what your kid look like? What school they going to? What grade they? No. I understand you're a proud parent, but just some things don't need to be public information, man. Don't make it tougher for your child than it already is. But like I said, I don't have any children, so this is just my perspective. But hey, what do I know?
Yeah, and that's I've been speaking on that to the maximum over the years about that. Attended workshops and in services, police officers leading these in services, and they saying the importance of protecting your children on social media. But no, the bottom line is, when it's all said and done, people need to be validated. And a lot of people have low self esteem that when they reach in a grab bag, that's all they have left is their children. Because you
Mm,
know that if the world is driven on social media, far as acceptance, and most times you post a picture of a child or some event or activity they're doing, most people are like, oh, and they like it and all of that stuff. What does that really mean? Do they really fucking like it? Do they really freaking care? Or are they just going along with it? So that's one thing you could do uh, in the world we live in. Post kids, elderly people that's probably on their last legs, uh, and also shit. If you got medical issues, whatever, you do any of that, you post that, you're gonna win, which is sad, which is very very sad. Not the fact that we're elderly, they're older, they live their life, so it's nothing wrong with that. Because sometimes people connect or they find out like, oh, through social media, I didn't realize that that person was sick or going through that. Let me reach out. But the kids, keep them innocent. Let them live their life. Because what happens is, like Herb said, people sit around these computers all day and they study this stuff and they look at locations and things of that nature and they study uh, logistics. And and again, I keep telling y'all, every other day I see somebody missing, some missing girl, some missing kid down here. And it's probably not just in this area, it's probably all over. And how do you think this is happening?
mhm.
Through social media, they don't just randomly come and grab somebody, they study this stuff and they realize, oh, she goes to uh, George Washington Carver Middle School. Oh, she plays for this soccer team because the mother or dad posted the picture of them winning. Oh, let me zoom in on that. Oh, what park is that? Okay. Oh, the father and mother just made a post. Um, I guess I got to be mom and dad because um, dad ain't around and I have to attend everything. But I'm so proud of my daughter. Oh, the father's not around? Okay. Okay, let me go. Y'all don't, y'all really don't understand what be happening when y'all be putting this stuff out there. That these people be studying all of this shit that be posted, and then they make a move. Oh, I'm so tired of working doubles. I hate to leave her in the house alone, but she's such a good girl. She does everything.
Mhm.
I post that shit. Why post it?
Yep.
And they're like, oh, she goes home alone. Y'all better wake up,
Hmm.
man, for real. Yeah, it's just so crazy that hey man, what am I to say? I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm tired of talking about
Nah, I'm gonna follow it up because you said it earlier, and this is another component. Like David said, they study. Just like David said, your kids know your habits. These people know your habits too. So why give them additional information? Like I said, use your neighborhood. If you know people are coming and going, and you know that you might be in a situation where you might have to work a double, you don't want to, but hey, make sure your child is safe. Make sure your child has, even if your child has to go to a relative's home, and this is what I was talking about with the emergency contact. If you know that your child has soccer practice later, make sure your child gets to somewhere where that child's going to be safe. So if you get home at 6 o'clock, you can go right to that place and you can say, hey, come on, let's go home. I'm going to get you some dinner. If your homework ain't finished, we're going to get that done. We're going to get you to bed and sleep. Speaking of getting to bed, sleep is a huge, now David's probably got something to say about just sleep, especially for middle schoolers, is imperative. Even for high schoolers, but it's more important for that seventh, eighth grade because statistics say that they're not getting enough sleep. They're supposed to, be saying that 57.8% of middle school students are sleep deprived, and that comes from the CDC, a study did in 2015. High school students, 72.7% of them are sleep deprived. And you know what that means? That means that they can't focus. They're not going to retain information. And guess what that's going to leave them? Summer school. Do you honestly think your child wants to spend another 4 or 5 weeks going to school? You know, they could be out possibly making money. Possibly, if especially if it's a single parent home and they want those $100 sneakers, guess what? They can go and earn the money for them. But that's only if they have the time to work. Because I don't believe most people are going to expect their child to go to school and work, especially in the summer. Summer's for having fun. Summer's for trips. Summer ain't meant to be spent going to school, especially if that building doesn't have AC, which a lot of northern schools don't have. So do you honestly think about this? Do you, as an adult, do you want to be someplace where you don't have to be because you didn't do what you should have done earlier? Get it done. Put your put your students slash child in the position to succeed, not have to go back and redo something that should have been done right the first time.
and yeah, and I do have something to say about that, and that's part of, like I said, when we go into the classrooms and I talk to, and I'm even talking about my little sixth graders, which I had last year, sixth graders. So one of the questions I always ask, what time y'all go to bed? Before the accident, and I'll say, well, let me tell y'all what time I think y'all should go to bed. I said, because y'all 11 or 12. I said, probably. I said, yeah, I probably should be getting ready to bring it on down, 8 o'clock in the bathtub, uh, getting freshen up, taking a bath, uh, packing your little lunch, making sure your computer charged, getting your clothes together, everything lined up. And I said, yeah, I probably should be in the bed like 9:30 at the latest. And they like, 9:30? For real, Mr. Glover? Yeah. and they like um because I challenge them. I'm not. We not gonna. We gonna go back and forth. When I'm doing the lesson, and they like, and I said, "What time y'all go to bed? 12, 12:30, 1, 1:30. Oh, I stayed up watching YouTube, just playing my game. Some of them, they made me maybe more advanced. They boo loving. They got a little boo, so they be on the phone, and their thing is they fall asleep on the phone with it going. Like they don't get off the phone to till they fall asleep. And I said, so let me ask y'all this. I said, so when that happens and you're up all night, what typically happens as far as organization? They be like, oh, we get up, we be struggling. And I said, so you be disorganized, and then you come into school lacking sleep. You have attitude with your peers. You have attitude with your teachers. Sometimes the counselor. Uh, how do you think your day gonna go? Like you're usually crappy, but you think for a kid that they gonna say, "Hey man, I had a rough week this week. I'm gonna go to bed early." No, it's up to the
Yep.
parent
Yeah.
to take away whatever the case, whatever's keeping them up. Whether it's the cell phone check, turn these cell phones in, put them right here on my dresser. That's where they will be. Unplug those TVs or whatever the case is, or remove the game system altogether until the to Friday
Yep.
or
Yep.
whatever the case. Because if not, shit, they be having a blast. Then they come and they're irritable, and many of them are nasty acting for no reason to adults. Yeah, and that's where the decline go, and it just repeats over and over and over. Then it get to a point that they really dating, and you get to the eighth, ninth, 10th grade. Now they really got a boyfriend, girlfriend, and they may be working, and some of them may be driving, and they're doing different things. But like Herb said, you got to nip it in the bud at a younger age. Uh, we've been spending a lot of time on just this readiness thing, and this is how serious this stuff is. That it's so much other stuff: the bullying, safety and security, social pressures, all these different things ties in on why adults or parents have back to school blues, because you have a lot to worry about.
Yeah. And like the theme song from A Different World. It's a different world than where you come from. We didn't have a whole lot of this, to worry about, when we were, these kids' age. Social media didn't exist, cell phones, and I'm still a proponent. I'm not getting a kid a cell phone until they're 16. That way you eliminate a lot of this stuff. Social and if your kids claim that they need computer access, guess what you do? Go get you a desktop computer, sit in a central location in the house, and that's where they use a computer. You don't have to worry about them not doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. You don't have to worry about them creating social media accounts because you're there. You can observe what they're doing, whether you're reading the paper or you write along with them, helping them. They can say, "Well, Mom, I don't need you to do this. So I just want to make sure you do it right." Too many people allow their kids to dictate what goes on in the home. That is a recipe for disaster. It's your home. You're the parent. Parent. I don't care if they're telling you what they don't need. Your responsibility is to ensure that they're not getting into things that they're not prepared for. Because a lot of these kids think they can handle something until they actually have to handle something. And all of a sudden they say, "Well, I didn't know." Well, no, I know you didn't know. That's why I'm here. So don't I'll keep saying this like a scratch CD. Don't allow your kids to dictate to you. They are the child, you're the adult. And if you find yourself in a situation where you don't know what the answer is, go find the answer. Go speak to somebody that does. I guarantee you that there's somebody in your family, in your neighborhood, speak to somebody that you trust. Or at the school, there's definitely somebody at the school who knows what the answer is. Now, whether you trust them or not is a different story, but parents have to get out of this cocoon and stop believing that they always have the answer, because you may not. And that's not wrong. What is wrong is not going to find out what the answer is. So don't do yourself a disservice. Go find the answer, bring that information back to your child, and move on. But, stop letting these kids tell you what they don't need. Stop letting these kids tell you that they got it all, unless they've shown and proved to you that they really have a grasp on things. And that's gonna be a case by case basis. You might have a child who's 15. They wanna go out for JV sports. You're looking at the grades, you're saying, you know, you only got an 85 in this. They can say, Mom, 85 is good. No, I want a 90. If you want to play in this sport, that's what it's gonna take. You challenging your child to raise their level because they're giving time to something that's additional. It's not required, it's additional. This is why when you look at high school sports and even on into college, that the expectations for those students was always higher than it was for the non-traditional students. This is why it's important that you ingrain in them not the need to be good, but the need to be better, because they're giving 10, 15 hours a week to whatever sport this is or whatever activity is, whether it's band, acting, or whatever the case is. So that's less time that they're going to have to dedicate to the academic studies. So you want to make sure that they're utilizing that time to do what it is that they need to do and to do it well. So when they're done with it, they're done with it. They don't have to worry about coming back to it. They can say, well, my homework is done. I'm holding a cumulative average of 90 overall. I'm going to bring that 85 up to a 90. You can say, okay, you know what? All right, here's the deal. If by the end of the next marking period, that grade isn't a 90, you got to quit the sport. That's the bargaining that you can do with that child who has demonstrated that they're capable of it. But don't bargain with somebody who's uh, 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 C student overall, and they're telling you, well, if you let them play, they're going to get that up to an A. In what world is that going to happen? You're going to jump a whole grade level to another one, and you ain't did it already? You haven't demonstrated that you can't do it? Nah, sorry. Maybe next year. But that's a whole year. If you want to play, that's what it's going to take. So now you've given them a goal. Now you set a bar for them to achieve. So when the next year rolls around, they can say, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, I got my grade up to an A. Can I go out and play now? Okay. That's the agreement we had? Sure. But you have to be willing to do that from the onset. You can't make it an afterthought. That's got to be before. And that's one of the struggles you're going to have as a parent, as you're going to have to tell your child, no, you haven't earned it. And I know in this day and age, telling a child no is like a death knell. You might have to be a dream shatterer to get them to see that in order to get to the next level, you have to master this level. Nobody starts out at the top. I don't care what anybody says, whether they got family members that put them in certain positions. Nobody starts out as a CEO unless you got your own company. Got to do it, parents. It's tough, but you got to do it.
And I think the bigger thing with that is also just you got to have your own data to put in front of the kid's face, because it's going to be a lot of things they're going to try to pull, even when they start, if they learn how to drive or whatever the case is. You have to know your child to know, damn, do I do I really trust them to take my whip to go here and there? I know who their friends are. Uh, I know how responsible my child is. You have so this is not like a drive by situation. Like certain certain things you have to examine as parents to say, "Damn, let me think on this. Let me see. I know how he is. I know how she is, and he hang with this person. I know this person
Mhm.
smoke weed. He look like he drink or whatever. I do not want that influence on my child. You might tell him, nope. You still roll with this person? Oh, you still hang with this person? Nope.
Yeah.
You have to give them substantial evidence for them to see. If you just like, nah, hell no, they ain't not gonna settle for that. They're gonna keep coming. They're gonna keep coming. But when you got data points to say, oh, this is why, and this is, and then they may say, damn, mom's right, dad, pop's right. I understand. I'm gonna have to go with come with a different angle. You got to come with something, but some of y'all just so freaking gullible. Yeah, you let the kids manipulate you and do whatever because essentially you want to be their buddies. You want to be their best friends. You because I don't know, it might be some self-fulfilling prophecy or something that you missed out in your child childhood growing up that you let this stuff happen, but it's crazy. So you got to know yourself, you got to know your child, and you got to hold steady to certain things. And again, we ain't covered half of this stuff because if you think, then again, when I look at my talking points, I say bullying. Uh, and I want to go to that. Like, we know how that operates in the school, and we know the impact on that. Now, my generation, we probably would have handled it differently. If we go by what the definition in the current times, many of us have been bullied or overpowered by someone to in your community. That happens with the older guys that you're bullied or whatever the case is. But I guess ultimately it always falls on how you respond to certain situations. Now, a lot of times people take the word and they run with it. And if your kid can give it just as well as they can take it, it's not bullying.
Yeah.
They going back and
Right.
forth. It's not bullying. I don't care what they told you at the end of the day, but if they're going back and forth, and it's like an exchange, it's not bullying. And, and one of the things, in our era, we was taught you got to stand up for yourself or or whatever the case. And if you didn't, surely your parent sent a bigger brother, bigger sister, a
Yeah.
cousin, or somebody. They didn't even have to live in that community. They was gonna come by there. They gonna pull up. Oh, you got an issue with my cousin, or whatever the case is. Some of that stuff nullified things that went on.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of times when we think of this generation, the social media and the different accounts that these kids got so many different accounts, you can't even keep up, and you don't even know. A lot of times, parents don't know. Prime example, I brought this up before, and I remember a situation years ago that had a young lady. Uh, she was kind of heavy set. Boys used to crack jokes on her, and she would call, let her mother know, and then the issue became the father was ready to come up there, the brother, like the whole family. But I knew from just standing out in the hallways that, oh, she gave it back. she would MF for this, MF for that. And I'm like, okay. But when the mother called, she's like, oh, I'm so sick of this. I'm so sick of this, Mr. Glover. We on our way up there. Okay. Because I don't know if they thought like I was supposed to fold up under my desk or whatever. But I had data. I had I had I, I had talk. I had data to support. Like I know where we about to go with this. So she came up, father, mother, brother, because they were sick of these boys talking about her weight. But I know I just had heard her calling them MFers and this and that, giving it just as well as she could take it. Uh, and what ended up happening, I was like, well, when they came up there, I said, I don't know if she's as innocent as y'all think she is because I know she goes back and forth with them. Oh no, that's not my daughter. Trust it is.
This is your daughter.
Yeah. And I said, well, we'll find out. I'm about to go get her from class, so we could call her to come down. And and I've mentioned this before. Some of these kids is again, parents, you might drop off a kid or you may pull off at the same time when they get on the bus stop. That is not the same child. And I'm not going to say it's not an absolute. Some kids is just who they are. They do what they need to do. And God bless them. I love those kids that stay focused. They hear the voice of reasoning. Like I got to be on point. I don't want to disappoint my parents. And they come and do what they need to do at school. And they never a problem. But that ain't the case and with many of them. And some of y'all think once you drop them off that's it. Nah. So you had the little girls. They have on the little outfits covering their body. They pack a little something different to go in the bathroom, change up. They want to show, they start developing. They want to show a little cleavage. They want to throw on, it's still September, it's a little warm. They might want to throw on some booty shorts at school. But you had them on, they had on pants. When you left out, you seen their outfit. That ain't the outfit they always necessarily wear. Daphne said absolutely, but that's not the case because they're the parents broke best friends. True. True. So well, I don't want to lose my train of thought, and I think I'm losing because I'm getting old. But anyways,
No, you were saying that they changed clothes.
yeah. So they change clothes and they do different. They're not the same. They're not the same kid who you think they are once they get around their peers. It was another point I wanted to make. God damn it. Just what happened when you ramble. You got to always be on point. It'll come back to me. But I think the bigger thing is that you have to understand that sometimes what they do is a facade. They'll work the game around you, but then when they get around their peers, they do things differently. And so you would never understand. So I know where I was going. So, anyways, with that one young lady, when I called her down and she came in and she seen her family there, because I just had heard her the period before, motherfucker this, motherfucker that. Shut the fuck up, bitch ass. But when she came in and walked through the door and she seen her mother and all that, and she was like, hi, mommy. Huh?
Oh,
Huh? 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 I wouldn't say, huh? You definitely don't sound like that when you up in here.
Academy Awards, yeah.
Yeah. So right then I like, I'm about to have some fun with this. So when she came in, I'm like, heard her story, talked to the parent and the mother was like, she does not have no social media. I said, she got social media. She got social media. Because again, remember, I got data. Kids showed me what she
Mhm.
said. And because she ain't supposed. Well, she got social media. So then after all that, when the brother started going through, because he younger, he's like, Ma, he right. Not only she got one account, she got like 10 accounts. So I think I was going with this, and I was saying that they have so many accounts, you can't keep up with this. Like they just keep shutting down accounts and coming up with other stuff because even people they beefing with, they still want to kind of spy on them and lurk on their stuff, and they know that person may have blocked them, but they keep opening up these accounts, so you can't keep up with it. And simply, as educators now, we don't have time for all that. We don't have time. So sometimes you need parents' help. Like, I don't know what y'all gonna do. If y'all gonna have a phone check every week, uh, to go through everything, but we don't have time to police all this stuff. And that's what y'all be expecting when it become a beef and you don't think your kid gonna have the winning outcome. Now you shook for your kid and you want the educators to rescue her. And we're saying you got to put in that work before. What Daphne said, not at all. They code switch. Oh, they definitely code switch. Hi, mommy. Hi, mommy. Hi, daddy.
I would I will tell you parents this, and I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. If you want to be able to keep track of your kids on social media and they're trying to obscure it, pay their friends to give you the information. Couple dollars here, couple dollars there, grease the wheels. That way, not only do you have the information, you got the pertinent information there. And they're going to wonder how you got that information. Tell them it's my responsibility as a parent to know what you're doing, to know where you are, even when you don't want me to know. So if you keep trying to hide things from me, and you got to have an open door with your kids too, especially as they get older. But if you keep trying to hide things from me, guess what? I'm just going to have you in the house. You're not going to have any social life, but you're going to be the smartest motherfucker in the class because I'm going to make sure you eat, read, and defecate school. You don't want your children to be unbalanced, but you don't want them to be balanced at the, at the behest of their their welfare and their quote unquote freedom. So if your kids are going to stoop to the level of being deceitful, being dishonest, you got to beat them at their own game. Yes, I'm saying hire their first best friends to be snitches. They don't have to know. Call a friend and say, hey, look, I want you to do me a favor. Here's $5. I want you to tell me what social media does she have. You think that child ain't gonna sing? Now, some people say, "Oh, that's mean. Why would I want to do that?" Well, you might be right. You might have a point. But if $5 is all it takes to keep your child out of trouble and safe, is that not a small price to pay for that? I'll let you as a parent decide, but I know what I would do, personally speaking. I'm going to have snitches on every corner, in every class, in every place that should go. And if I got to pay them and it amounts to about $50 a month, guess what? That's a small price to pay for making sure my child comes home every night unharmed and leaves every day going into the world knowing or unknowing, because she's not gonna know or he's not gonna know that they're protected, then I'll sleep well at night. It reminds me of a segue. When I went to Buff State, and my younger brother doesn't know about this. We had our own cruise. I was there 2 years beforehand, and people already know that story. So I was in my sophomore year. He was in his junior year, and he used to hang out with a group of cats from New York City. They were slightly irritants, freshmen coming in trying to make their way. And I'm sitting around a group of upperclassmen, and they talking about, yo, we gonna get them little freshmen. I said, who? Those group da da da. I said, oh, word? He said, yeah. I said, I'll tell you what. You can fuck with anybody in that group you want to. But if you put your hands on that little light skinned cat, I'm gonna come see you. Well, who is he? I said, put your hands on him and you'll find out. Now, he never knew that. And being that he doesn't listen to this podcast, he probably won't ever hear about it. But needless to say, no harm ever came to him. That's what I'm talking about. You got to be that kind of protective for your people. And if you ain't willing to do that, then hell, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. But make sure yours are safe. And if it takes a couple of dollars here, a couple of dollars there, a spy here, a spy there, do that. Do what you need to do to keep your people safe, especially your kids. Because they're relying on you for that. They may tell you, I don't need you. I can do this. Yeah, okay. Whatever. I'm gonna be here when you think I ain't. I'm gonna do what I need to do, even though you may think I don't. Because once again, I'm the parent, you're the child. You don't have to tell them to stay in the child's place. You don't. Matter of fact, I would encourage parents. Don't tell them what you're doing. Switch up your routine. If they thinking you gotta work these hours, you know what? Tell your supervisor, your boss, you know what? You gotta leave early today. Go home, be there. If they're supposed to be home at 4 o'clock and they ain't there, just sit at the door calmly because they're gonna get there eventually, unless something's happened. Then it's a different situation. But just sit there when they come through the door and just say, "You're supposed to be here at set hours. Why ain't you here?" And then you go see the real tap dancing. And that's when you say, "Okay, you know what? You can't go out anymore. If you ain't here, and I'm gonna have somebody that's gonna tell me, there's gonna be some bigger problems that you're gonna have to deal with. You gotta be that kind of parent. Be that kind of parent. They're gonna label you as strict. They're gonna label you as controlling. Take all them shots. But the one thing they will probably never ever say is you are neglectful. And some things you gotta live with. If they want to cry and talk about, I hate you, I can't stand you, my other friends get to do this, you just reply, say, hey, look, I'm not your other friend's mother. I'm not your other friend's father. Your friends don't live here. You want to live under these? You want to live under this roof? These are the rules. If you want to live under another roof and follow their rules, I'm not gonna stop. But just understand, when you leave here, you leave here. Sometimes you have to call kids out on their bullshit. You do. Because most of these kids, all they're doing is issuing idle threats. They ain't going no goddamn word. Just like you used to tell people as a kid, I'm gonna run away. Run away and go where? What you gonna take your stick and your satchel and go around the block, and then when it hit 2 o'clock in the morning, they get cold and you want something to eat, you gonna come back here?
Sometimes you might have to role play that situation, and one of the things is when a kid is talking, I hate you, I hate this and that. It depends on your level of sensitivity and how you handle it. Because ultimately, you should think like you're gonna need me before I need you. So you can eat that. That's just like taking a check hook or something. Like we make references to sports or boxing, like, oh, I ate that. That's the best that you got. And
Yeah.
but when you give up power to them, then you're going to be in another whole situation. Peace Village. Let me read this comment. It said, parents must raise responsible children or be at fault for reducing a failure. The parents force the child's soul into our world. Parents must take accountability. Yeah, and I think that's the key thing. They have to take accountability, and you also have to understand who you are and be strong in who you are. Be strong in your values, which you grew up in and believe in. You can't get caught up in okey doke. Well, that was then. This is now. No. I know
Yeah.
what worked for me, and this is the regime that from generation after generation we went through. Now, if you just beating the dog shit out of a kid and they got bruises and all that stuff, okay, it's probably time out for that. You should have a better hold on it when you have to resort to that. But overall, and I can say generations or people went through that. I don't. Most of them aren't ones that went through and just start battering and beating the hell out of children because they had a sound system in place. So usually people fall in pecking order, uh, and people just fall in line. So, but you know when you look at social media, well that was then that wasn't effective. Nobody should do this or nobody should do that. They probably got a little chink in their armor, and that's why it was. That's why they feel that way. But I think for the most who grew up under them disciplinary thing, sooner or later, people know. They know. You fall in line and you do whatever you got to do. With I'm never going to encourage abuse and all this stuff. But we also know that as far as uh, those type of situations, parents can discipline their kid. Just
Yes.
can't be excessive. You just can't leave uh, uh, bruises and marks, or oh he hit my dad hit me with a frying pan and things like that. You got a black eye and different things like that. That's just taking it too far. And I'm not trying to even encourage any of the because hopefully it wouldn't get to that point. But also I do understand that sometimes it does get to that point. And I think that's based on, parenting and the style and the respect level. Kids know who to play with and who not to play with. Trust and believe. And I think that's the bigger thing. Like who to play with and who not to play with. And so sometimes they'll play with the mother, but they know auntie don't play that.
Yeah.
She'll fold the kid up and then fold the mother up. So so they know. Like shit, I ain't gonna play with her. And they had probably the best times with them because it's structure. It's
Yeah.
structure. Every kid needs structure. When kids have structure, I don't care what type of kid they are, they better for that time under that structure. Especially when they start to respect you, because sometimes you don't have to put your hands on anybody. You just have a system in place. Either you fall in line or I ain't messing with you. It and if the kid they can sense that that's a good person, they want to be down with you or whatever the case is. So it's simple. It's complex. This whole thing is complex, but that's why it takes. They say a village to raise a child.
Yes. I
Each
was
village
just gonna say
said,
that.
"Go ahead, Herb."
Yeah, but go ahead. You can read it, Dave.
He said a parent must have patience with their children. It's impossible for the child to ask for life. It's true. You gotta have patience. Got to know your child. You got to know yourself, and you got to be able to work together. So that's what you got to have multiple resources and have multiple people in the child's life. You got to basically build a dream team. You
Yeah.
got to build a team.
Yeah.
And most people don't build the team. because you have some fathers or mothers, they have partners, rotating partners come in, and some of them are not worth it. Uh, and you have, you know, relationships with brothers or sisters that might not be so tight. You got to have a solid team. I think people have a solid team with the kids that they never miss a beat. So whatever profession that the parents work, and if it's an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent that have to pick up the pieces, everybody in a line, because you have these conversations, you communicate. It's not like a drive-by situation. Well, I got to go to work. You got to stay over here, and the child like, huh? Who is that? I've never been over here before. I don't remember being over here. You got to have everything in place. You got to have, again, structure. Yeah, I think that's key. I'm done
Yeah.
talking about that.
No, because I'm gonna follow that up. I would tell people, and I know some people are probably already back to school, but these things need to start at least 2 to 3 weeks before that child actually goes back to school. And what I mean by that is this: have your places that this child might go when you're going to be late coming home from work, or when that child has something to do that they may not be coming home until another time. So if you're accustomed to your child getting home at 3:30, and a child is in a extracurricular activity and they're getting home at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and you may not be there, have another place where they can go. You know, concentric, overlapping circles or web, because in this way, everybody's helping. Just like David said, everybody's helping. Because as your child gets older, trust me, there are going to be times where you're going to say to yourself, I need a break before I kill this child. And it's understandable because that child's going to grow. The personality is going to shift somewhat. So the kid you had at 19 years old, at 14 is going to be completely different. I see it on social media. I see parents complain about what has this child turned into. This child has turned into a young adult. That's what happens when you hit puberty. So don't expect that child to remain the same throughout that child's maturation into adulthood. Expect them to change. But also, as P said, you have to be patient. Have that upper door policy and be honest with that child, especially, you know, if you don't have the the access to the opposite partner. Meaning, if you're a single father, get somebody to balance you out. Find a trusted female family member to speak to that girl about certain things. And same thing if you're a mother with a single boy, go go get a big brother. Go down to the local community center, wherever else it is, to find somebody that can walk that young man through all the things that he's gonna have to deal with. And this is something else I'll get into, and it hadn't been mentioned yet. Is drug use. Well, actually, Dave mentioned smoking. We drug use. When we were kids, huffing was the thing. Now you talk about fentanyl, and I know most people will talk about, well, I don't have to worry about fentanyl. Wrong, you do. Because fentanyl is colorless, it's odorless. So if your child is smoking weed with somebody who gets mixed up in fentanyl and they put that fentanyl in that weed, guess what your child is doing if they hang around people that smoke weed and they want to try it? Well, mom, it didn't hurt. I just wanted to try it. Well, damn, what happens if you OD on some fentanyl? I got to bury you. That's not what I want to do. See, kids, they don't know about this type of stuff because they don't think it's relevant. That's where your responsibility as a parent comes in, is to say, hey, look, let me sit you down and let me show you what you're doing can lead to. Be honest. They may not like it, but your job as a parent, pardon me, your responsibility as a parent is to be like this, to tell them, is to teach them, is to guide them. so they can stay safe from the choices that they may make ignorantly, because it would be messed up for them to find out after the fact and the damage done is irreversible. They might get into a car with somebody who's been smoking because they aren't effectively able to deal with peer pressure. They can say, you know what, you've been smoking, man, you've been drinking, I'm gonna walk home, even if it's a mile and a half. Oh, you scared? You know what? Empower your kid to say, you know what? You are absolutely right. I am scared to get in the car with you because you've been doing this. You would be amazed at how powerful that is to imbue your child with the ability to say that. Because most people use that to try and get your kid to do something that goes against that kid's best interest. So empower your kid to say, you know what, I'm scared. That potentially could put me in harm's way, and I'm not going to do it. And then once that child says that, you also have to empower your child to say, you know what, I can't hang out with you no more. You living reckless, and go find a new group of people to hang out with. But you have to empower your child to do that. And you also must be there when that child needs somebody to advocate for him or her. When they say, Mom, Dad, I ran into a situation today. This is what I did. And when that child tells you what they did, say, you know what? I'm proud of you. You were in a situation where you could have relented to the pressure and you could have done this, but you didn't. That takes courage. And I will tell you what, the feeling that that child is going to get internally, nothing will ever trump or replace that. Because now you strengthen that kid's resolve that even in the face of utter and complete foolishness, that they're going to have the confidence to say, you know what? I'm not going to do it. And no amount of shaming language, peer pressure is going to make me fold. I'm not going to do it. That's how you develop a leader. That's how you put your kid in a position to excel.
And that's true. And you have to take on those techniques. You have to do a little extra. It's not going to be the same. I think oftentimes, as older individuals, we say, well, it worked for us, but we don't go on the deeper level or the surface to say, damn, how can I connect the pieces that when I grew up to the pieces that's what's going on now? So you might have to do a little more talking, explaining our era. I don't know, we probably taught you didn't examine or question the
Yeah.
older person who was saying anything. So these kids are more inquisitive. They have more means or what, like I said, information travel faster that they can, Google or go on YouTube and see certain situations that they're going through live or not live, but like videos and stuff. So they're kind of prepared to come with certain things and say, well, I seen this, or you're always like this. They always got the right answers. Sometimes they do. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we miss the boat on things that we were taught it was covered. So in that case, sometimes you have to give them grace, but
Yeah.
you have to have conversations like life space conversations to be able to talk about what happened, what went wrong. I truly I do believe my way or the highway is probably over as far as parenting.
Yeah.
Uh, so you have to have that patience or and that wherewithal to just sit there and have that conversation and see where they coming from. So you might have to do your homework uh,
Yeah,
to let them know, like, this is why we're not going to do this or not going to do that, because it's just a lot of, I always talk about it. It's the visual and image, the stimulation of the mind usually is something visual. So they see a lot of visual stuff because we're in that state of technology that's going to trump your dry message that they don't see visually. If they don't see it, they probably not going to believe it. So they're more adapt to see something that they can Google or go on YouTube and see, and you can put anything in and something's going to come up,
yeah,
and they're going to go with that and say, well, this is here, and they'll send you the link and all that shit in your phone while you're at work. Well, this is why I say that we could do this. You like, sometimes as a parent, you're like, I don't give a fuck what that video said or whatever the case is. That's what we're faced with. Sometimes there's a lot of back and forth. I don't know. I think it's a case by case situation, but you got to be willing to try everything to make sure they're ready for school and they're ready for the next year after.
yeah,
That's what I feel.
yeah, yeah. And Peace Village states adults reproduce humans with their own DNA and confuse when that child misbehaves. If the parent is not peaceful and the environment is not peaceful, that will affect the evolution. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's really difficult nowadays for people with children to date. And I had always said that if I had a child, I wouldn't date until that child is of age. In this day and age, a lot of people want companionship. And sometimes the price that the kids pay is peace of mind, especially if coming into that home is another adult male and you don't know what that adult male's history is, and you got a teenage girl in there. You don't want to subject her to not feeling safe in her home. And Davis posted in the counselor's corner a lot of times about what the daughter says her boyfriend has did, and the mother doesn't believe her. There, I could not imagine a worse feeling than not being believed by your own mother when you're being assaulted in your own home. So the home has to be a sanctuary for the mother and the children that reside there. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And if that means that you can't date the way you want to, then that's the decision that you have to make. Your child should be your primary, secondary, and third focus when it comes to their well being. Sorry, there's no other way to put it. If you got to sacrifice, some headboard boogie for 4 or 5 years, that's the choice you made. That's the choice you made when you engaged in the behavior that you did. I'm sorry. It, I'm not saying you have to go without. I'm just saying if you're gonna do something, keep it outside your house. If you gotta have midday rendezvous when your child's in school, then have your midday rendezvous. I'm just simply saying keep any potential distractions, safety concerns outside of that home. They already have enough to deal with, and this is what we mean by the blues. John made the song. I guess that's why you can call it the blues. Keep it out the home. Unfair, yeah, but your child deserves to have all the advantages and all the fairness of being safe in the home in which they lay their head. Don't make the environment untenable, toxic, or any other negative word term that you can derive. Let them exist in peace. Especially if you're a young parent under the age of, let's say, 27. You had your child when you were 20, when you're 27. 10 years is not gonna kill you. It may seem like it, but yeah, it's a period of time. But that period of time for that child, when they're developing and they go into the world and they're gonna say, you know what? My childhood was peaceful. I didn't have to worry about anybody bothering me. I slept well. I ate reasonably well. I had all the things like that my parent or parents could provide for me. I got no complaints. But somehow, a lot of parents don't give their children all the advantages they could because the parent wanted to be fulfilled. The parent wanted this. Well, don't I deserve to get this? Don't I deserve to get to go out for a night? Yo, I suppose you could. I suppose you do. But what matters more? You going out for a night or your child being provided for? Your child being safe? I'll let the parents make that decision. But when that child starts to act out and misbehave, don't question why. You already have the answer.
Ooh, a lot of- so, and that's the thing. When we said we're gonna have real conversations, this is real. Most of the time, you might hear just the little surface stuff. Do this, do that, do that. But it's deeper than that. And I think in education, you only could take it. They always have buzzwords. Let's have courageous conversations. Really, really.
Mm-hmm.
So, in order to have courageous conversations, that means teachers will be able to step out the limb and say what the hell they want to say, because we know parents going to say what they want to say. Uh, so, let's stop throwing that word out there, courageous conversations, unless you give teachers or educators a time to say, hell, this what the hell is going on. I don't think you did this. You ain't never follow up with me, or whatever the case is. They got duct tape around their mouth. It Things won't be the will never the equilibrium will always be off. And I think we need to have true, honest, courageous conversations where we got to release something, so to make it balanced, because certainly you can't parents can't be able to scream out and do whatever they want to do, and kids, and then you have educators that like trying to say the politically correct thing because they're afraid, oh, am I going to lose my job? I'm going to do that. We got to come up with a better structure. That's all I'm saying. And again, we're about to face we're 2024, 2025 election year. A lot going on. A lot of
Yeah.
things
Uh
pending. It,
huh.
it's going to be pivotal. And we already see, like, the inflation, the rise of food and everything, clothes, everything. So it's going, this year it's going to be a struggle in a lot of areas. Uh, but one thing we have to find a way to be in sync with each other. That's the only way it can work. And and I think that's the missing piece, that it's too many disconnects with education, educators, parents, and kids. So Do I have the solutions? No, but I can come on here and talk about it. And I want
Mhm.
everybody to challenge stuff that was said. And that's where we start forming deeper dialogues on that. But I know most educators probably in the bed, wrapped up in the bed with they moo on, or with whatever the guys are, they sleep. But I'm up. I'm up because my mind is always spinning. So I'm able, even at my age, to keep it moving. Let me stop saying that. Like I'm like damn near 80. Yeah, young as you feel.
There was a question that I had asked earlier in the broadcast regarding the number of days that kids spend in school versus out of school. We know school year is 180 days long, barring any suspensions and missed days. The number of days children do not attend school is 185. Now, people will say, well, does 5 days really make that big of a difference? Nah, probably not. But here's the rub. If you look at schools, I believe it's in Japan or China, they go to school year round. And what that does is it helps to lessen the loss of information from the last year or the previous year. So, what that means is this: if you have a child who struggled with math, they're less likely to struggle the next year because they're drawing on what they've learned prior. Because we know math is you build upon everything. You build upon the prior year, the prior year, the prior year, the prior year, the prior year. Same thing with science. History is probably the outlier, but English is not. So everything you learn in those three cores, you're building on. You're building on until you get a complete picture. So 5 days is not a lot until 5 days becomes the difference between that child getting a passing grade. And I know they've dumbed down the grading system. I can't believe they've actually done that, but that's a different topic for another time. So that becomes the difference between that child particularly getting the passing grade and that child ending up in summer school. We've already discussed you don't want your child ending up in summer school because it robs them of their youth. Nobody wants to go to summer school. So make sure your kid is, as David said earlier, academically prepared for success. That's it. Make sure it's your responsibility as a parent to do that. Give them every advantage they need to succeed. Good evening, Jedi.
Yeah, you know, I mean, in this conversation, it probably could be a part two, part three,
Mm-hmm.
part four throughout. It depends on how we run it, but it's something that probably needs to be talked about. But of course, we're not going to cover it all tonight. But the couple points with academic readiness, bullying, and all that stuff, certainly we put a lot of stuff out there that if you want to, you know, you can rebuttal or you can come back and get something out of it. We see what Jedi say. I see that you guys are hell bent on saving the burning house. Keep in mind that the people you are trying to save are the ones who set the house on fire. Just a reminder, more power to you. It's not
Hey.
it's not about saving the burning house because I'm not about to put myself in that line of fire to do that. So I'm probably the person way down the street shouting out stuff, whatever, because I'm not gonna lose my life or my value behind it. But there's nothing wrong with trying to put stuff out there so the next person could do something different. But then
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
Many people think that shit it's a loss. It's a fight that we can't win. But we can't say that either because there's still hope. Long you can influence some people, but you got to get right now. We're trying to get at the young, or trying to tell the parents
Yeah,
to
yeah,
educate the young so that they don't have to be in that burning fire. Because yeah, it's gonna be a lot of asses that always gonna get cooked, get major cooked throughout. I just don't be want to be one of them, and I wouldn't want my family members to be. But we only can control what we can control, and that's ourselves. So one and
yeah,
so a lot of times people think you can't even control kids. Shit, once you go to work and all that, they could be a different person. Like I mentioned earlier, you only know what you know,
right.
but and you never around any particular individual 24/7. So once they get older, they know how to manipulate the ways. And even in marital situations, shit, you only around that person for the time that you're around them. Other than that, you don't know what the hell they got going on.
Yeah, it's a tough world, but I mean, just like the troll we had last week, they never pop up when we talk about these kinds of things, and they'll ask, well, what are black men doing? We put out a plethora of examples for people to deal with some of the problems and social ills that plague our community. The question is, do people want to utilize them? And most of the time, it's no, because people are comfortable where they are. It's not, as my boy used to say, when the pain of being a great gets too when the pain of being the same gets too great, that's when people change. And until then, like you said, Jedi, the people burning the house down are the ones that need to change, and they ain't gonna change. So, like David said, I'm not putting my ass in the crossfire to save people who ain't willing to listen. I'm not doing it, especially when I don't have to.
So at this point, what do you say? I have been burnt a few times and have learned my lesson. Just doing my part to remind the real and good ones we are all we got.
Yeah,
Those renegades don't share our functional culture. And I am not going to dispute that. And I'm not going to give any rebuttal to that. Those are your experiences. And many of us have been burnt many times. So you could feed people with a wooden spoon. And I
hmm
think we try to feed people with a wooden spoon. And once harm come in my way, shit, I'm shutting down. I'm
yep,
shutting down. And I don't give a who it is. I don't give a damn who it is. Mother, father. I mean, once it come my way, because I realize you only got one life to live.
yeah,
And and the I think the stuff that's projected on social media when you have, and it may be the culture for women. Well, I do this for my kid. I do that.
Ooh,
I do
yeah,
this. I do
yeah.
that. They just be talking because at the end of the day,
JBT.
yeah, JBT, you got one life to live. And shit, if you wanted to be dead sooner, if you would find a way to do it. I'm not about to lose my life to do some reckless behavior behind anybody. That's just plain and simple. So I understand your point, but again, I think we try to give people some strategies or some conversations or some situations to kind of roll with and see what they do with it. This shit is up to them how they respond to it. That's the biggest thing. Don't matter what happens. Somebody could do this. It's how you respond to it that matters. And as we always use boxing analogies, a real counterpuncher studies everything, and how they respond to it is the outcome. And people in life, you got to be counterpunchers, and you got to respond to situations a different way, a way that's going to make you a winner. If you can't take a punch or you can't take this, shit, you don't stand a chance. So you got to be able to counter every situation. some situations you just got to learn and grow with, because you're going to take some bruises along the way, but hopefully they don't knock you down and knock your ass out.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
So we're going to get out of here, because you know what? Like I said, it was teacher week, and tomorrow I got to be in meeting after meeting after meeting and all that stuff. And I probably should be running all that shit. Let me stop, because somebody may listen and they be like, David, we heard what you said. So we want you to lead a PD. Nope. So any closing comments, Herb, that you got with this topic? Because we're not done with this by far.
Yeah. No, man. Education it's important. So don't let something that is as important as this is receive less attention than it deserves. And as always, growth and understanding occurs in a gray area. Godspeed. See you next time. And are you putting a brick in the wall of the conversation, or are you taking one out? Take one out.
And for me, it's a lot of valuable information, and it's so much to be discussed. We only touched on a couple things. As parents, you got to do something different each school year. You got to think of something different. If you know your child struggles, because some things are simple. You know that they may be ADHD, like they can't sit still and all that, but you haven't went to the doctors to give them. And I'm not trying to promote medication or whatever the case is, but you know you didn't follow the protocol to get them on point, and you kind of just said, "Hey, get in here, gave you some clothes. I gave you the Jordans, I gave you the Dunks, and you got the best backpack." But it takes more than that. It takes more than that to make sure that they ready. And sometimes there's other health providers that's there that you need to follow up with each and every one of them. It could be as far as, they struggle with reading. They need glasses, but you ain't do your just do to take them to get an eye exam. It's just little things like that. And I'm not trying to put parents on blast and all that, but I'm just saying we all have to work together on this to make these kids solid. It's not a one person job, because they're not with their parents 24/7. They're not at school, in the school 24/7. They're not at the rec center 24/7. Each and every one of us get a piece of these children, and we got to find the best way to give them life experiences so they could be the best that they could be. And that's my closing comment. We all got to do our part. And with that said, we out. On to the next one. See y'all next time. Y'all got any suggestions or anything? Please comment. Please like and share this video. And please post in the counselor's corner. And let's keep having these courageous conversations. We out. Peace.
All right, people. Y'all take care.
All right.